agenda is posted for the Board of Sewer Commissioners for 6:15. So I will call the Bourne Board of Sewer Commissioners meeting to order. Any agenda item herein may be subject to a vote or other action by the Board of Sewer Commissioners. Meeting is being televised and recorded. If anyone in the audience is videotaping, please acknowledge so at this time. Mr. Roush, thank you. Mr. Mulvey, do we have any public comment?
No, none requested, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Mulvey. Wastewater Advisory Committee would like to have a report from Mr. Yule, I believe, or Ms. Riggs, or both relevant to the work on the Wastewater Advisory Committees and an update on the wastewater treatment facility proposed.
Yes, thank you for having us here tonight. As you recall, last March or April, you voted to support a two-part plan for solving the wastewater problems, the wastewater capacity issue.
Excuse me just a second, Wes, you might want to move that mic up just a little bit towards you. There you are.
Okay. Try not to bump into it this time. Is that better? Does that sound better?
Yeah, that's better.
There you go.
Okay. The long-range part of that plan involved creating a regional solution with the towns of Wareham and Plymouth and the Mass Maritime Academy. And then later in the summer, we came and asked you to endorse an application by the Buzzards Bay Coalition for an EPA grant to study the feasibility of that plan. Last week, EPA announced that the coalition had received that grant. And then earlier today, all of the representatives from all of the participating towns and the Maritime Academy met at the Academy this morning for a kickoff meeting on this. The initial work will include surveying the, well, I think first I should mention that the plan is that the town of Wareham's wastewater treatment plant would be upgraded and expanded to handle much greater capacity from Bourne, ultimately enough to sewer all of the areas south of Route 25 and the side of the canal. And that would be done, right now the plant has a design capacity of 2 million gallons per day. It's operating at about 1.6 because that's as much as they can use with their current outfall. The plan would be to create a new outfall into the canal that would run from the plant along the railroad grade. So part of this grant is going to pay to survey the railroad grade to see if that is physically feasible. And another part of it is to do baseline environmental monitoring in the bay in order to design how this would affect the water quality in Buttermilk Bay and in Buzzards Bay if this change were to be made. The town of Marion has also joined in on this. They have a small neighborhood right on the, they have their own wastewater treatment plant, but they have a small neighborhood right on the Wareham border that is impractical for them to reach, much as Plymouth has that neighborhood in South Plymouth that's impractical for them to reach. So, and there also was a representative there this morning from SERPED, the regional planning agency that covers both those towns. So that long-range plan is really getting legs. It is complex. It's going to take at least a decade to get it permitted, possibly longer to get it built. It's very likely that it would be done in stages. The first stage would be the canal outfall, at which point the Maritime Academy would tie in. And that would allow the Wareham plant to operate at full capacity, which would give them another 400,000 gallons per day, some of which could be allocated to Buzzards Bay. And then eventually they're talking about expanding the plant, and they have room to do it up to a 5-6 million gallon per day plant facility using the outfall. So at that point we would be able to negotiate a new agreement But like I say, that's a long-range plan. So the second part of our plan, of course, was to do something to increase the wastewater capacity in Buzzards Bay, especially in the downtown area, in the interim, in that 10-plus years or whatever it's going to take before we can ship more to Wareham. And to do that, what we have proposed to do is to install a temporary facility. This would be a package treatment plant. This is a factory-made unit that, and by the way, there are dozens of them all over the Cape, and you don't even know they're there. Every major shopping center has one, and nursing homes have them, and there are many of them. And like I say, you don't even know they're there. They come in on a truck. You put them into a building. In this case, we're talking about a 100,000 gallon per day unit. The unit itself would be about 11 feet by 11 feet by about 80 feet long. It looks like an oversized shipping container. It would go into a building that we would construct that would be probably about 30 by 90 feet and would look sort of like a commercial garage. On one end, it would have a large overhead door. It could have a pitched roof. You could put shingles on it, whatever you want to do. And then we've already got approval from Mass DEP to discharge subsurface discharge for up to 335,000 gallons per day on the Queen Sewell Park site. We did a full hydrogeological study over the last couple of years on that site. We're only proposing to use 100,000 gallons per day, and that would allow us to place the subsurface leaching field. And this leaching field is something like what you have in your backyard with a Title V system, with a big difference. The big difference is that the treated effluent that goes into this leaching system would look and smell like tap water, not like sewage. So it's much, much cleaner going in. And it would be a way to recharge the groundwater. Because of the location there and because of the sandy nature of the soil, most of it's just going to go into the canal. The engineers from Weston and Sampson tell us that about a third of the site at Queen Sewell Park, the groundwater drains directly into the canal. And the northwestern two-thirds, the groundwater drains into Buttermilk Bay and down into Cohasset Narrows. So we propose to, with this 100,000 gallon per day plant, to place the subsurface disposal area entirely within the area that drains toward the canal, so that we wouldn't be adding additional nutrients to the Buttermilk Bay situation. And that also would make it much easier to get the permits too. So the question arises of what would this look like on the park? And I made up a drawing. You already had from our previous meetings a site plan sketch that I put together. And that site plan, I'm glad you brought copies, because as I was putting on my scarf and gloves and knit cap and overcoat, I managed to leave the house with all of my handouts sitting on, thank you, Tom, with my handouts still sitting on the step, so I didn't bring them with me. So I took this and I made a perspective view of what you might see from a drone looking at the site, of what the site would look like. And it basically looks like a new ball field, because that is the most visible part of this. The northern half of the site, or the northwestern half of the site, where the existing ball field and playground and the parking lot is, would not change at all. There would be no work done there during construction or afterwards. It would have no effect whatsoever on the existing facilities at Queen Sewell Park. The path through the woods and the woods around it that currently is used to come between the tunnel out here and Cranberry Road and Armory Road, those paths would not change either. Those would stay exactly as they are. The leaching field area would be at the level of the existing, the old tennis court that's up there. And that area would be graded out and there's enough room there to put a regulation-sized ball field like the one behind the building here, and plus a 50-car parking lot to go with it. On the early drawing, it's labeled 30 cars. When I was doing the aerial view, I realized I had miscalculated that, and there's room for 50 cars there. All of that would be accessed entirely from Armory Road. So there would not be, this would not generate any new traffic on Cranberry Road or in that neighborhood. As I say, nothing would change on the existing facilities, but the new facilities would all be at the upper level and all be accessed entirely from Armory Road. The building itself, with the treatment facility in it, we would put down in the corner of the property right next to the Armory, opening out onto Armory Road. I was driving by there today, and unless you turned and looked directly at it as you were passing it, you would not see it from the bypass in either direction. There's enough trees there that would not have to be changed or removed, that they would just block the view anyway. And you would not see it from anywhere else. There would be an area behind the building where there would be some underground tanks that are associated with the facility. I'm not sure what all those tanks are. They're typically 4 or 5. I know that one of them is a surge tank because wastewater does not flow evenly. It tends to flow in bunches. So any treatment facility needs some sort of storage so to take care of the higher flow times. The timing on this is we are ready to sign an extension of the contract with Weston and Sampson to do the permitting for us, or the engineering and the permitting. I am working on the environmental notification form right now, and we expect that we would have that work done by the end of April, as far as getting ready to apply for the permit, having the engineering done by then. Once the engineering is done, we will apply for the permit. We have to go through the MEPA process, and that's going to be probably a 6-month process. But we would expect by this fall we would be in a position where we would have the permit in hand by the end of this year. At that point, we can order the material, order the package plant. The package plant takes about 2.5 months to, less than that, 6 to 8 weeks to build once it's ordered. It's delivered to the site. We would have, before it's delivered, put the foundation in, built the building, put the piping and everything else in that needs to be done. So that could all be done during the construction season of next year, 2017. And if all goes well, we could have this up and operating by the end of 2017, which would tie in well with the schedules of the various developers who have asked you for additional wastewater capacity as far as their buildings and their properties coming online. So that's basically where we are. We're looking at around $180,000 for the engineering and permitting. We have some of that in place, and we're still looking at other sources for the remainder. We have enough so that we can proceed for the next 4 to 6 months with what we have already available. The construction, the purchase of the treatment facility and the construction and the installation will be probably about $3 million. And there are several programs that we would go after for that. There is actually a state grant program that could pay for the whole thing. And that's going to be our first choice to go after that. That's the infrastructure grant. There are also 2 other state programs, lending programs, where the state would issue bonds, so they wouldn't count against the town's bonding authority. And then we would work out an arrangement with the users of the facility, in other words, those who got capacity from the facility, to do a district improvement funding program where they would actually pay off the bonds over a 20 to 25-year period. But that's Plan B. Either way, it appears we will be able to do this whole thing without having to go to town meeting and ask for money, which I'm sure you'd be glad to hear. So that's where we stand right now. We've still got a long road to go here, but we are making progress on both fronts, both the short-range plan and the long-range plan. And what we're asking for you is for your continued endorsement of our work so that we can keep going in the way we're going. Or if you want us to change. Or if you have any questions, I'm right here.
Mr. Meyer.
Yes, is this the maximum capacity, 100,000 gallons, or in the future, if we see we want to expand this, can we go to 200 or 300,000, or is this it, a one-time shot?
The site has been approved for up to 335,000 gallons. The 100,000 gallons is pretty much for the type of treatment facility we're looking for. That's about as big as they get. And that's only been recently that they've even gotten that big. If we were to go above that, you need to bring in a second package plant. So you're talking about doubling your cost, basically, or at least doubling the cost for that facility. So yes, we could expand it if we needed to. Those facilities, even though we call it temporary, they're designed for a 25-year life. So if it takes longer to get the regional plant up and running, we're not going to be having to replace this plant in 10 years. As far as adding additional, yes, it could be done. It could be done in 10 years. It could be done initially, but it would be additional cost.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Blanton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for the report here, Wes. Looks like an awful lot of great progress has been made. Thank you. I wanted to ask a question about with that infrastructure grant through the state that may actually pay for this in its entirety. Just wanted to ask you how competitive that grant process is, if you could forecast any likelihood of success with that. What other background can you give us on that grant?
I met last fall with several of the people at the Cape Cod Commission, with Patty Daly and Paul and yeah, names escape me this late in the evening. And they said that we would have a very good chance of getting it. In fact, they were very optimistic about it once we got the engineering and permitting in place. They said if we would apply for it this year, there is one catch on this grant. You've got to use it the year you apply for it. So, or the year you get it. The applications go in September, they're awarded in January or February, and then you've got to use it by the end of that year. So you've really got to have all the groundwork ready to go before you even apply for the thing. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to be all in place by the September deadline for the application. They said once we get that done, we'd have a very high probability of getting the grant. They did tell us, though, that it would probably be essential that we look into the Community Compact, which is a new program that the governor has put into place that streamlines the process of getting a state grant. And it also, it requires some obligation of the town to pursue best practices in a certain area. And when I look at those standards, and we can choose what area, and we're looking at this as an economic development instrument, by the way. It will have environmental benefits, but the primary drive here is as an economic development instrument. Their best practices say, well, if you're going to do that, then you've got to change your zoning to make sure that you are encouraging exactly the kind of development that we've been encouraging for several years here, and we've already changed the zoning. That you've got to make certain investments to encourage development. We've already done that. So we're already a long way toward these standards under that program for best management. We need to look at that further. We need to talk with the school department to see if they're interested in it, because this includes school grants, and we need to talk with the DPW, and we need to bring all these departments together. And I've asked Tom that, when things quiet down here a little bit, let's have a meeting and
Yeah,
talk
we've
about
had
that.
initial discussion with the Commonwealth on 2 different occasions relative to the compact,
You have.
and spoken with my colleagues who have also moved forward on the compact. So there are a couple of areas that we'd look at. One would be the economic development piece. The other would be the financial management piece with the new policies that we've been working on and those types of things. So there's a couple of areas that we could be successful in.
Good, good. And as I say, Patty Daly said, you get into that program and you have your permit in place, you got a really good chance of getting the grant.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Mealy or Mr. Ellis?
I have no questions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
What's that? Okay, it'd be nice to get that grant, because I'm not sure if the entire community would like to pay for a wastewater treatment plant in Buzzards Bay.
We're not going to order it until we get a grant.
Yeah, I know that, okay. And so we are actually, you're looking for us to, as a board, provide direction on whether or not to proceed, and give a
I'd like a
But
vote of
okay.
endorsement.
vote of endorsement for the work, and ask you to continue in this manner.
Yes.
So move.
Second.
Second.
Did you get that, Carol? Okay, great, thank you. And I'm not sure who's second, either Mr. Mealy or Mr. Blanton. Might have been a tie. You guys want to arm wrestle?
Not tonight.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Any discussion with members of the board?
I'd just like to extend the board's thanks to yourself and Sally for the work that's been gone through and getting us to the place where we are. We would not be in this position had we not gone through to get subsurface permits for disposal and some of the background information that's been presented this evening. And I'm very pleased to be able to sit here and say I think we've finally come to the end of the line of looking at how to do it. And now it's just a matter of turning the right levers and keys to make it happen. So it's a tremendous, I think, a tremendous leap for the town, and especially for Buzzards Bay.
Thank you.
Good job, Morris, thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, just one other point on,
Did you vote?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Okay.
Discussing.
on the additional funding that we need for Weston and Sampson for the engineering. I just wanted to note that Sally has worked on and submitted on the town's behalf a DLTA grant to the county for the additional $70,000 that we're looking at. I don't know how successful it will be or if it will be successful, but I just wanted to acknowledge the work that was done on that and thank Sally for her help.
Great.
I know it's a town submission.
Mr. Mulvey, please take the podium.
Questions I have are merely to have a better understanding. It's not opposition. But if I could, through the chair, ask Mr. Ewell, is there an estimated total gallonage from a developed downtown, anticipating full development, even what is already proposed? Is there some idea of what we could expect for a total need for downtown? And, well, let me go on. Then, just to understand, as you take care of the Queen Sewell, you'll need a pump station, I would assume, to get up. Was that the one behind the facility downtown, or where would that go? Or, but that, okay. So you need a pump station. And then, of course, you've got major pipelines to install on Main Street to get up to Queen Sewell. So there'll be some roadway or private property involvement here in costs that will be involved with all of that. And then, as this is developed and the pipeline is extended, would there be any betterment fees perhaps imposed on the properties that these lines would go by? And then I guess the final would be, if looking far down the road, we would use the existing line for part of our sewage to go to Wareham for treatment, and then the treated effluent come back. Would that mean two pipelines, another additional line all the way from Wareham to here?
Let's see, the first question,
Capacity.
remind me again, the first question.
Need.
Capacity,
Total
100
Capacity,
gallons.
yes. The 335,000 gallon number wasn't just pulled out of the air. That was the number we asked for. The site would probably handle a lot more than that. That's what we're permitted for, and that came from a study that was done by an engineering firm in collaboration with the Cape Cod Commission. Was it 4 years ago? No, 3 or 4 years ago?
It'll be 4, yeah, it was
4 years
2012.
2012. So, and that is based upon what they call practical build-out. In other words, they took the existing zoning, the existing vacant parcels, the parcels that needed to be redeveloped, and came up with an estimate of what the reasonable practical build-out of the downtown area would be, and said the total volume that's needed in addition to what is already there would be 335,000 gallons. So that answers that one. The pump station, there would have to be a new lift station installed. It would be over in the back of this building, behind, right close to the bypass, because it would need to be lifted up from there. Very little new piping involved in the short-term arrangement. There would be a new pipe that would go from Main Street, probably through this property, up to the Queen Sewell Park area. Other than that, the downtown area is already sewered, so there would not be a need for additional sewer piping in there, except where it's already needed. There are areas, as you know, that needed to be upgraded anyway. And then the question of, on the long-range plan of piping, first let me get to the, by tapping in here and bringing part of the existing flow to the new facility, has two benefits. One is it allows the new plant to be operating efficiently immediately. Plants need to be up, if it's a 100,000 gallon per day plant, it needs to be operating probably within half of that anyway to operate efficiently. And we would be able to do that immediately. That also would, as Jim mentioned, free up capacity at the other end of Main Street for the flow that's going to Wareham to handle the proposed development at that end of Main Street. So there are benefits in both ways. As far as the flow on the long-range plan, coming back to the canal, the proposal is to run that pipe along the railroad right-of-way. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Did we vote?
Not yet.
Anything further from any member of the board?
Just one quick
Mr. Plant.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's just a redirect back to Mr. Mulvey's question about the capacity and the total build-out. With regard to the total build-out of Main Street, just correct me if I'm wrong, did you just say that the total build-out, the gallonage required would be the 335,000 gallons per day?
Plus what you've got.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that.
Right, thank you. Any further?
Betterments, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, betterments. As I say, there wouldn't be new piping other than what you're going to need to do anyway, so there would not be betterments, no.
Great, thank you. All right, we have a motion on the floor. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Sounds unanimous to me.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Okay.
guys.
Okay. Update, proposed development, 25 Perry Avenue.
Good evening. My name's Leonard Bello. I'm the attorney for Ryan Career and the entities involved in purchasing the property known as Zero. I think it's Main Street and 21 Perry Ave. My understanding is that when I was last here, there was a certain allotment of surage set aside for this project. I think that commitment was sort of made through sometime in April, but the board asked that we come back on January and give you a status as to where we were at and the progress that we made towards getting to a purchase of the property and starting development. So we're here to give you some good and some not so good news. The the good news on our part is that we did all that we were being asked to do. We had everything in place. We had a closing scheduled. We had people attend the closing, except the sellers ran into a unexpected problem, we're told. There are, as I think most of you know, a family involved of 6 siblings or 6 members, and they each own a portion of the property that's being sold to us. They each signed a purchase and sale agreement, and in a matter of days prior to the closing, we were advised that there was some discord among the family members that had arisen, and one of the family members elected not to go forward with the sale, and therefore the sellers did not appear at the closing that was scheduled, moved, and finally scheduled for Friday of last week. So we were at the closing, the lender was at the closing, $2 million worth of funds were at the closing, the realtors were at the closing, and the sellers were not. The sellers are represented by an attorney, Sheldon Friedland. He's been representing them since the onset of this matter, which goes back to 2013. He's been negotiating with me throughout, and he's represented here by his partner, Mr. Human, who's here just to substantiate what I'm telling you, because they are now in default. Our goal is certainly not to go into lawsuit mode. That's going to not accomplish any of the goals that we set out to accomplish. I've discussed with Attorney Friedland some of the options that seem to be available to him, or to, better yet, his sellers, 5 of the 6 who want to go forward very much with this transaction. And I'm afraid it's now in their court to take some action between themselves in order to make this deal, bring it to consummation. So that's where we stand right now. We certainly want to see the commitment for the storage continue, because if it's not continuing, then we have no alternative but to be in full lawsuit mode. Again, that doesn't help anybody. We have our hotel developer waiting in the wings who we've signed a contract with to begin as soon as we close. We thought that was going to be within the next 30 or 45 days. As soon as we could get the subdivision plan approved, they're ready to purchase the portion of the property that was set aside for them. We have another developer that's in the wings ready to purchase another portion of the property and create another project. So that's our report back to you. I'm here to answer any questions. Mr. Human's here. He can speak on behalf of the sellers. I really can't. I've never met the gentleman that's in question here. I've never spoken to him.
Just a question, if I could. Would you kindly go back to your comment of looking for the sewer commitment and something to do with lawsuit mode? Could you kind of hone that in, what your potential lawsuit would be?
Well,
is that with the sellers?
Yeah, absolutely. The sellers stand in default. I mean, they have very little to sort of stand on from a legal point, but it doesn't. That's not what does us any good. If we lose the commitment of this board and the allotment of the storage, then we lose our, I'm sure, our commitment with our hotel folks and the others that we've been working with. Property is certainly not worth the same. The project is not worth the same.
Mr. Blanton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The lawsuit that you're referencing, if I may, It would be a lawsuit for specific performance? Is that what you would be speaking of, or some other?
There's a number of different contract damages that can become available. Specific performance is certainly one of them.
Mhm.
What I'd have to weigh out is specific performance with surge or specific performance without surge. I'm not sure that I want specific performance without surge, but that's again not the direction we want to go. There's another much easier solution to our problem.
Any other member of the board have a comment or questions for the attorney? Mr. Ellis.
Thank you. I can appreciate your predicament. With the slow movement of the law, it doesn't get any better. But you have to, I think, look at what our predicament is. We have two other very huge projects waiting in the wings who want that gallonage. So, in your best estimate, any idea how long this might take? I understand the slow movement of the law, but by pressure, whatever you want to say, which we don't agree to, we don't even acknowledge, but is there any way that you might find that this would come to fruition in the very near future, 6 months, 8 months?
Oh, absolutely. It's one of the options that is available to the sellers, and I'm being told by Attorney Friedland that the sellers are willing and ready to do whatever it is that they need to do, is to petition the court to partition the property.
Yeah.
And that would result in a commissioner being appointed who would then convey the property based upon the contract that exists right now. Once that's put into motion, it depends on whether it's met with opposition. The actions that have taken place over this past week are illogical. They don't make any logical sense from this party's view. There were offers made. I mean, we were on the phone constantly for 24, 48 hours of how to try to resolve this. And I know that offered to these parties was, let's close, we'll put all the money aside, and then the family can fight over which portion goes to which party. That would make sense because they would maximize their dollars. That was not agreed upon. Other family members, my understanding is, tried to make financial overtures, and that was not agreed upon. But again, I'm not privy directly to those because I don't represent any of those people, nor have I ever spoken with them directly.
Mr. Mealy, did you have something?
Yeah, I just, do you have a better idea what the time frame is?
Well, I think...
I mean, if it's obviously not next week, but is it April, or is it March, or is
well,
it February?
I certainly would think that in April we'd be in a very realistic position to either have this thing resolved or know exactly where we stand. I mean, it's just going to be, from my view as an attorney, if an action is presented to the court, which can be done quickly, then the parties are served, and they either get counsel and argue against this, or they just sort of sit back and it happens. If it just sit back and happens, then we'd be done by April. If they want to put up an argument against it, then the question is if they can think up of an argument that would get beyond what we would call a summary judgment. I mean, I think it would be difficult to do that. And there's 5 out of 6 who own 80% of the major parcel that are all going to be saying, we want this deal to be consummated. We want it to go forward. So there's a lot in place that would move this along in what would be a relatively quick fashion. If somebody comes up with some brilliant defense, then I guess at some point we'd know about it, and then it's whatever the court says. If he deserves a day in court and you have to go to trial, they would set a trial date. But by April, I think it would either be over or we would be at a trial date that we would know. I can't see this going to trial. I mean, this is a,
Mr.
If you
Chairman,
have something else, Mr. Meyer, go ahead. Then Mr. Blanton.
I know you have a date of, of April to get this done, but I don't want to hear come April that all of a sudden, motion's been made, it's going to trial, and all of a sudden we're looking 6-8 months up the road when we have someone that's already waiting in the wings that wants to do work. I mean, and you heard a proposal earlier that may be done by the end of
Next year.
2017. So if worse comes to worse, if we have to walk away from your support for that 27,000, you have something waiting in the wings by the end, within 18 months. So it's not that long. I just don't want to just keep on, I don't fault you, counsel. I mean, it's a family squabble that does happen, but I just feel bad for people who have come here in good faith and want to put money back into this town, and then it was like 1 month, 2 months, 3 months down the road, and we can't, in my opinion, we can't afford to keep on pushing, to keep on waiting and waiting. I mean, we waited a long time, but I prefer, if it looks like it's going to be any length of time, I want to give it to someone else that will be ready to step up and use it.
well, again,
Okay.
we've done what you've asked us to do.
Just want to hear from the other.
I mean, we've spent an awful lot of money, time, entered into contracts, all based in good faith on contracts. And certainly nobody anticipated, and certainly no one on your board anticipated, that the problem was going to be a seller was going to say at the last moment, I don't want to sign a deed. So we've done everything that we've been asked to do. We've relied upon contracts. We've relied upon the commitments that you've made to us. And now we're just faced with, okay, the other side has thrown this up, and they're willing to say that we will do everything in our power to move this project forward. We already have the hotel developer. The other people that you're talking about have nothing but an imaginative plan in something that they're hoping to do, and maybe will put together over time. We've been through that whole time period, and we've made all of those commitments, and we're ready to go. We're hoping that as soon as either an attorney gets involved, another attorney gets involved and talks to the individual, we understand children have talked to him, we understand brothers and sisters have talked to him, but we're ready to go. So if they tell us on Wednesday of next week he's changed his mind, we're at the table. I mean, we're all set. We're ready to move forward.
Mr.
You do-
Blanton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's unfortunate that this closing was scheduled just last week, so here we are, right here at the 11th and a half hour.
Well, it was only just scheduled on Friday because the sellers were pushing it, trying to resolve their problem. We were ready.
Well, let me just go back. It was a year that the developer was granted the 27,083 gallons. That year expired. We were then told that the closing was going to be in October. Then we were told the closing was going to be in November. Then in November, we were told the closing is going to be in January. And prior to this, and we frankly wanted to see substantial progress made toward this end. And frankly, I don't think we have. And as far as seller, buyer, that's your problem, not ours. No disrespect meant, but we've got people waiting in the wings. Mr. Blanton had a question, so I just want to bring you up. It's been a year and a half right now that we have allocated 27,000 plus gallons to this developer and have seen no action. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll differ to a degree, because I do hear where you're coming from, sir, that you have made diligent efforts on your part, certainly on the buyer's side, to consummate this transaction. I don't know if maybe we need a permission of the board, Chairman. It would be your pleasure to potentially hear from the attorney representing the sellers to corroborate some of this information and see if we can
Well,
find out what the time frame
I
is.
think that he's here, and I think that he's here. He's certainly welcome to come up and add to it. It's not that I disbelieve the counselor at the
I believe
podium.
him.
I just don't think that anybody from the seller's side knows what's going on beyond the fact that there is a holdout somewhere. I don't think anybody can state that there's any specific time certain that this is going to occur.
Well, I don't know, why don't we
But
ask him up here?
Fine, let him come up, that's fine. Just if you would, sir, would you just provide your name and? Sure.
Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Alvin Human. I'm an attorney. I have offices in New Bedford. My law partner is Sheldon Friedland. He's the one that actually was handling this matter. And as Mr. Bellows said to you, at the 11th hour, one of the 6 people refused to sign the deed. We have a deed with 5 signatures on it, not 6, so we couldn't go forward with the closing. What was previously mentioned to you is that the other 5 members of the family are livid, to put it bluntly, and are preparing to put together a petition to partition the property. I've been through a few petitions to partition, and they don't take a lot of time because there's really no defense to them. The defense you can put up is the other people don't own the property. That's about it. You file the petition, you get a pretrial conference date, the court assigns a commissioner, and there's no issue about sale either, because that's always been a big problem with petitions to partition, because you had to put the property on the market and find someone who wanted to buy it. That's not here in this case. There's a purchase and sale agreement in place. As soon as we get in front of a court or a judge, I think it's going to happen. I think it's going to happen very quickly. If you have any questions for me that I can possibly answer, I'll be happy to try to answer those questions.
Do you think you'll know by March 1st?
I can't be that specific, but I think clearly by April we should be done with it.
Okay, in the interest of going forward, there was a,
Thank you.
I'm sorry, yeah, there was a vote taken at our last meeting which gave the developer an extension for 6 months. We are now at 3 months, but our comments were that there should be significant progress. I'm not sure that I see that. I am concerned that we have a developer who owns the property in another area and is ready to break ground, I presume. So, who is here in the audience? Do we have any motion, a member of the board?
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
I would move the board continue with the, through the April date that's been requested. And I say this because I think these gentlemen have demonstrated that an awful lot of work has been done. They came up to the line, and except for one individual holdout, which they have no control over, but have indicated that there is a remedy for that, tells me that I think given an opportunity, they can make this a successful undertaking. And I further think that this board and this town needs to demonstrate to all the developers that we have a responsibility to be able to work with them. And by making a decision this evening that they have not demonstrated, have not shown good faith, they have not come forward with a plan and action that they have taken every step that they possibly could to make a progress that we had asked for, I think would be saying to other people that the board, the town of Bourne, may not be a great place to come to because they have been known to switch horses in midstream. So for that reason, I would move that the board continue on with an extension through April as requested. We could pick a time certain that's agreeable to the board and to the developer and give them the final opportunity. And if that time that nothing happens, then I think we've really done all what we possibly can, and we should go on into the next phase of watching out for the next portion of what development's going to be.
Second.
Well, I would jump in on what Mr. Meyer said. We will have a package plan somewhere along the road, but that they could key in on, that they could jump in on. I'm just concerned we're going to lose another developer on Wagner Way who already owns the property, but you have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion, members of the board?
Question, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Mr. Guarino.
Shall we schedule that meeting as per your normal scheduling toward the last Tuesday of the month? Or do you want it sometime prior to that?
It doesn't really matter.
Okay, we will try to
Doesn't matter.
schedule
I
it for the
mean,
last Tuesday of the month.
When was the vote? The vote was in November.
Right.
Was it due the last,
March, April. So-
the end of April?
Right, end of April.
So by the time you get to vote on this, I won't be here. So, oh, yes, I will be here. I get 2.5 more years.
You have 2.5 more years, Mr.
I
Chairman.
I thought I was done this
No,
year.
because my life, you know, I'm
I know,
looking forward to
yeah.
that, so.
Okay,
That would be April the
It wouldn't
26th,
be
Mr.
my
Chairman.
all right, so
26th.
The 26th.
you have a, okay,
Last Tuesday, Mr. Chairman, will be the 26th of April.
Correct.
okay, so we have a motion to continue, or do we even need that motion?
I made a motion that was seconded by Mr. Ellis.
Okay,
We just didn't have
we
it.
don't need it, because we already took that in November to give them 6 months.
Okay.
But if you, we'll do the motion.
No, that's fine, that's fine.
I think it'll reaffirm it, Mr. Chairman.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman,
yes.
I'd just like to also echo the same sentiments that very cautiously I would support that continuance, but with the caveat being that really if we don't see further commitment at that time, we have to look at other options. And I think that signal needs to be sent to the sellers, that should they see a potential diminishment of value for their property should this fail, they're looking at that.
I assure you that we've pointed that all out to the sellers this past week, and 5 of 6 obviously see that. And I just add that we've taken all the steps that we can take. When you say that we haven't made substantial progress, I know that you haven't seen ground break, but you have seen the encroachment be removed from our property by Coastal Motors in order for the closing to go forward. They've been out there digging up half their paved way in the wall that was there because of its encroaching on this land. So that was all done, everybody thinking we're closing. The financing, which was an issue, was all in place at the table. The hotel developer, the contract that you were looking for was submitted to you, and they're on board. There are others that are also on board. So we've made as far progress as we could possibly make. We can't close the deal without the sellers fulfilling a contract that's in writing, that's been presented to you, that everybody has seen, that's been involved in the progress. And the answer to that is what we've discussed. They have the right to petition the court to partition the property. They file that, and the issue about who gets what money becomes secondary between the family, but the commissioner will sell the property. And they're authorized to do that, and there's the contract in place. So, I mean, I just say that we have worked hard. We've tried to fulfill all the obligations. I've only been in front of you once before. We agreed to this date to show you. We pushed it right up to the last minute, but not because of us, but because of the sellers. Little did we know that the real problem was that they were having differences among themselves, and they were to this extent.
I will say, Mr. the Chair, that this will probably this will be the last extension or the last chance you'll get out of me. That come April 26th, if I don't see substantial construction, I will be voting against extend it. So please, do your best to get your ducks in a row, because you guys have done a lot of work, but we got people waiting as well that deserve to be moving up in the queue if it gets to be too far along.
Okay. I certainly
Let's take
understand
the
the
vote.
town will do what they need to do.
Let's take the vote, we'll get the vote done, and then I have some questions for the developer. Okay. So, all those in favor of Mr. Mealy's motion to permit the developer to go forward through April and hopefully get a closing, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And the chair votes in opposition because I think we've dragged our feet too long with this, and I think there's another developer who's prepared to go forward that owns the property.
Fair enough.
So 4-1 is the vote on that. Mr. Correa, you have plans for a hotel, correct?
Correct,
And does that include a restaurant?
correct.
why are the plans that were submitted to the fire chief had no restaurant involved?
The plans were just for the backside for his fire trucks to get around. That was mainly it. The restaurant's in the front of the hotel, which wouldn't affect the fire lane.
I don't believe that's, okay. Because if you don't have a restaurant in that hotel, and do you agree that the allocation for the 27,000 goes to the hotel, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so if there's no restaurant in the hotel, and when I saw the plans at the fire station, when I was reviewing the fire chief's budget, and he brought it up that, oh, I've got some plans to look at, there was no restaurant in the hotel, but your engineer told him that there's gonna be a potential, if you're facing from Main Street to where your hotel is, to the immediate east, there's a potential of a restaurant conference center that you're gonna collaborate with the Keystone people on?
No mention of that to myself. The restaurant is part of the hotel, but not in the hotel because
But not in the hotel?
Correct, and that was stated long ago.
Do you recall that?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the issue was the hotel would be here. I thought the restaurant was to the west.
I thought it was
I mean, the restaurant was to the west of the hotel, but it was all
Right.
joined together into one project.
one
They were working with a restaurant developer at
Correct.
the time. That's my recollection.
I don't recall
Mr.
it.
Chairman.
Well, in any case, good, Mr. Holmes.
Thank you. In the 27,500, 27.5 that's set up for the surge, is the restaurant hooked into that, or is that restaurant going to be separate?
That's all combined, it's hooked into
It's
that.
combined.
Correct.
Now, in your submittal, is it clear that that's what it is?
Yes.
It is. Okay, do you realize that the fire chief is going to request that your whole project be moved back about 10 feet so you can get a fire engine in the front side?
Correct. That's why we gave him the plans, and we've already moved it back to 10 feet.
Okay, good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, good.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I see there's a lot of opposition from you from the beginning. Is there a reason why you don't want this? We came for a residential development first, which is my background. Based on your board and other boards, they wanted a hotel. I went above and beyond in the time frame I had to get the hotel
was
here.
because we didn't have allocation for anything further than what the hotel room and the restaurant would go for.
But I came to you originally with a 144-unit complex, which would take the allocation, and your board and other boards have mentioned that they felt that the hotel should be first. The hotel was a draw for the town. I agreed to stop my 144-unit project that I was pursuing, had plans for, and went after the hotel. I'm just curious if there's a reason why you're against it.
I was not the chairman at that time. I'm not sure what exactly. I was under the impression that there was not enough allocation. My concern is that we have a developer. I mean, first of all, you said it was going to be a year. And in that first year, the only activity that we saw was the purchase of a parcel from Falmouth Housing.
Correct.
That's it. Then you need another 6 months. I mean, we have people that are trying to get into town. That's my only, I mean, we have people that own the land that are ready to break ground. And I think that there is a lot of, I mean, you have plenty of area here. A package plant or a connection to our package plant would be fine. I'd like to see more development. I'd like to see the proponent of the Wagner Way be able to do his. That's my concern.
Mr.
And
Chairman,
it has taken quite a while. Go ahead.
Mr. Correa.
Yes.
I have some additional problems with this, but I would advise you, in the tack that you're on right now, you might be better to fold your tent and go home.
Okay.
And if you have nothing further,
I do not.
okay.
I have one question, if I may, Mr.
Go ahead.
Chairman. Would there be a convenient time between now and April that you might come back and show the board where you are with the plans and so forth? And then there'd be no question about whether there's a separate building for the restaurant and that kind of stuff. You're going to be probably preparing those anyway, I think.
Correct.
And if there might be a convenient time, you could make an appointment with the town administrator just to come in as an informational thing, not only for this board, but also for the residents. We're very excited about it, so we're all rooting for you here, well, most of us.
Appreciate that. I appreciate that, sir.
Okay.
And yes, that we could do that, and the plan is ready to be submitted. We're waiting for the closing to submit the final plan. Horsley Witten's on board, but we could definitely make that happen.
Great. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Good. Anything else, or do we have anything on this calendar here? What do we have?
Mr. Chairman, I will defer my
Update on Wareham.
Wareham until the next meeting.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn
We
the
have a
sewers
motion
meeting?
to adjourn.
Second.
We have a second by Mr. Blanton. All in favor?
Aye. Want to take a 5-minute recess or something?
Sure, a 5-minute recess between meetings, I guess. We don't have to. We're adjourned.